revealed. 10 spine-chilling Appalachian cemeteries with sinister, haunted secrets you never knew. Eldridge Hollow, nestled in the Appalachian foothills, looks like a postcard. Winding streams, thick forests, and rolling hills, but above the idyllic scenery looms a dark past. Liz felt it the moment her daughter, Emma, stepped out into the moonlit night, her laughter fading as she headed toward the old cemetery. A chill skittered down Liz's spine, a warning she brushed aside until the frantic shout came. Emma. Panic squeezed her heart. The cemetery was said to be haunted by the whispers of the past, and now, fear clawed at her throat, tightening its grip. Hours turned into days, and the once bustling town transformed into a ghostly shell of anxious faces and quickened pulses. Kind-hearted neighbors turned into wary silhouettes. "We'll find her," they said, but their eyes spoke of secrets, heavy-lidded and burdened. As search parties combed through the woods, anxiety thickened the air like fog, and every rustling leaf became an ominous whisper. Emma's name twisted on the tongues of townsfolk like some dark prayer. "Did you hear about the Dunbars?" Someone murmured in the diner, fingers trembling over a coffee cup. They were the last to be seen near the East Cemetery. Liz's spine straightened. The words sunk into her like a cold blade. She had thought of the Dunbars, an angry fallen tree branch last year, the family's buried secrets. Her instincts flared. What did they know? She forced her ears to catch every word. Rumors tangled with despair, revealing the town's connection to 10 infamous cemeteries, each echoing with restless spirits seeking a reckoning. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As Liz pieced together the puzzle, unease simmered beneath the surface of community support. There were strange markings on her door, children whispering words she couldn't catch. Shadows moved behind familiar faces. Friends who once brought her smiles now turned their eyes away. It was unsettling, each close encounter filled with an eerie patience, as if they stood on the edge of something unspoken. The town's wealth gap revealed more than just arrogance. It hinted at hungry souls tied to the land, shamelessly ignoring the coven of the past. Beneath their smiles, danger lurked, cloaked in pleasantries. Late at night, Liz would stand at her window, heart racing, feeling the cold weight of lingering eyes, the fear of being hunted by those she thought would aid her. One night, she spotted David, the charming leader, sweeping his gaze over her house. She felt ice grip her heart. Something deep in her soul whispered he held the key. Her bravado faltered, and Liz found herself questioning everything. She knew, instinctively, that her pursuit of truth could cost more than she was willing to pay. In Eldridge Hollow, where the daylight seemed to stretch far too thin, the very land itself watched with bated breath, waiting for her next move. As dawn broke, Liz trudged through the foggy graveyard, shivers racing down her spine, the air thick with unanswered questions and unspeakable dread. What if the secrets of the cemetery reached out from the graves, hungry for something they couldn't have? The answer slipped further from her grasp, hiding in the shadows as she stepped forward, heart pounding, toward the truth that awaited her. The chill of the graveyard seeped into Liz's bones, making each step feel like she was moving through molasses. The moon illuminated the headstones, casting long shadows that twisted like gnarled fingers reaching for her, desperate for connection. She couldn't shake the feeling that the cemetery was alive, a sinister heartbeat beneath her feet. "Emma!" Her voice rang out, swallowed by the thick fog that lingered, wrapping around her like a serpent. The heavy silence pushed against her ears, each heartbeat drumming louder in her chest, drowning out any rational thought. Was Emma playing hide and seek? Was she just around the corner, giggling? Or had something darker taken her girl? The air turned icy as Liz rounded a forgotten plot, the headstone cracked and weary, barely standing since time itself. Names faded into confusion, but one caught her eye, Dunbar. Her breath hitched. This was no coincidence. Did the trees whisper a warning? Or were the spirits of the buried bound to keep secrets tied like ropes around their necks? Unbidden memories flooded her mind. Friends huddled together, sharing gruesome tales of the Dunbar family lost children, wild accusations, and the whispers of rituals buried deep in the coffins beneath their feet. A shiver skated down her spine. Connection and suspicion fused together in her mind, and Liz's heart raced as she pressed deeper into the mausoleum of fear. With a sudden jerk, she spun there. At the fringes of her sight stood David, his silhouette barely visible in the mist. He was watching her, an indiscernible expression plastered across his face. "What are you doing here?" he called, voice low but commanding. She hesitated. Could he know something? Or was this another performance of false concern? "You have to help me find Emma," Liz cried out. Panic bubbled in her throat, the desperation fueling her voice. But deep inside, she felt the creeping doubt slither in. Could she trust him? Did she want to? "Leave this place," David warned, stepping closer, but something in his posture felt off. Fear flickered across his face, a ripple of genuine trepidation that made Liz's pulse quicken. "Why?" she pressed. "What do you know?" Before he could respond, the ground trembled, a low rumble emanating from the earth beneath them. The headstones shuddered, and she staggered back, barely keeping her footing. "Run! We need to leave!" David shouted, a wild panic stretching his features. Liz turned toward the exit, heart racing, desperation surging. But as she moved, shadows darted around her, the dense fog thickening and coiling like a living entity, a suffocating embrace. She sensed something breathing in the dark, something that didn't want her to leave. With each step back, the cemetery felt more like a trap, its depths taunting her with lost whispers and dead secrets. "Emma!" she called again, but her voice met a wall of silence. Just then, the earth shook violently, and a scream, chilling and heart-rending, pierced the night. Liz's heart plummeted. That scream wasn't just a sound. It was a calling, echoing with despair, threading through her very being. "David!" she screamed, but the shadows loomed closer, and she felt a pull toward the center of the graveyard, toward the Dunbar plot. Terrified, she struggled against the grips of the fog, but it felt like the cemetery itself was alive, hungry for her to relinquish her hold. What would she find if she ventured further? What secrets buried deep in the earth would claw their way back into the light? As the fog wrapped tighter, Liz recognized that the boundary between the living and the dead was blurring, and with each heartbeat, she was drawn closer to the answers she feared whether she was ready or not. The ground shook again, this time sending a cascade of pebbles tumbling toward her. Liz stumbled, trying to regain her balance as the shadows thickened. They flickered like flames, alive with a violent dance of whispers that gnawed at her sanity. "Emma!" she cried out, her voice hoarse with dread. David grabbed her arm, his fingers clutching hard enough to bruise. "We have to go." His eyes darted to the shadows closing in around them, reflecting the terror that clawed at her heart. But a pull, irresistible and maddening, yanked her toward the Dunbar plot. A bead of sweat trickled down her spine, mingling with the cold that wrapped around her like death's embrace. "I can't leave without her. You don't understand." Liz felt the panic rise like bile in her throat. What if Emma was trapped? Or worse? His grip tightened. "Don't be stupid. It's not safe here. If the stories are true..." "What stories?" she rasped, cutting him off. The fear in his gaze crystallized into something deeper, something she couldn't quite touch. It was a revelation, but one she wasn't ready to face. The fog twisted into opaque tendrils, spiraling around them, making the air thick and hard to breathe. Liz could hardly see past her own hand. "Emma!" she screamed again, desperation resonating in every syllable as if in response. A muffled sob echoed through the haze. Liz's heart leaped. Had she really heard it? Or was the cemetery toying with her? The cry wailed through the darkness, a broken sound that made her bones ache. "Stay close to me," David urged, dragging her toward what seemed like safety. But each step backward felt like a betrayal to Emma. The shadows writhed, and she could almost see faces twist in anguish. They beckoned her, drawing her closer to eerie headstones worn by countless years. Suddenly, a frigid gust whipped through the cemetery, a piercing wind that carried a voice on its breath. "Liz, come." It wafted through the fog, sweet like candy, but laced with a venom that froze her blood. Her breath hitched, clutching at David's arm. "Did you hear that?" He nodded grimly. "That's not good." Just then, a figure emerged from the dark, slow and haunting. Liz's heartbeat thundered in her ears as a pale face swam into view. It was too familiar. "Emma?" Her voice trembled, wavering between hope and dread. The girl's features were twisted with a deep sorrow, eyes sunken and hollow. "Mom," she whispered, her voice a soft breeze that felt so impossibly distant, echoing off the stone. "Help me." Liz felt her heart drop as the shadows surged forward, weaving around Emma like chains, dragging her deeper into the graveyard's core. "No, Emma!" She lunged, breaking free from David's grip, the instinct to save overpowering her. "Liz, no!" David's cry echoed, but she was already racing toward Emma, drawn to her daughter like a moth to a flame. Yet with every step, the earth rippled, forceful and desperate, as if the cemetery itself wanted them apart. As she reached forward, the shadows clawed at her, wrapping tight around her arms with icy fingers, pulling Liz back. "Emma, fight it! Fight them!" But Emma's face twisted in agony, eyes wide, grasping for her while terror danced just behind her smile, like an omen. The ground opened at her feet, the earth cracking beneath the weight of their despair. "No!" Liz cried out, the world collapsing around her, falling into darkness. Then, as quickly as it had begun, everything stopped. Silence slammed into her like a freight train, the fog settling into an eerie hush. Liz's pulse pounded in her ears. She was left at the brink, toes hanging over an abyss, peering into the unknown. And all at once, the realization washed over her: whatever fate awaited them here was darker than she had ever feared. The graveyard had awakened. What would it demand in exchange for Emma? What horrors would Liz face to bring her daughter back? Every instinct screamed for her to bolt, yet deep in her heart, she knew she had to find the truth hidden in the shadows. But time was running out. Would she succumb to the graveyard's hunger, or would she dare to confront the unimaginable? A harsh wind howled through the graveyard, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay. Liz blinked, trying to shake the haze of confusion clinging to her. Familiar faces flickered in the darkness, strangers twisted into grotesque forms, their mouths moving in silent screams. The shadows loomed taller, oppressive and heavy with despair, each pulse of fear wrapping tighter around her. "Emma!" The name echoed, a desperate cry that seemed swallowed by the darkness. Each second stretched into eternity. The air was thickening, pressing against her chest like an unseen weight. She could feel the ground throbbing beneath her, as if the very fabric of the earth was unstable, restless. What was happening? Panic surged again. Was Emma still here, or had she been taken? "Liz, listen to me." David's voice cut through the fog, but it sounded distant, like a dream fading. "We can't stay here. We know," she yelled, her voice cracking. "We have to find her." Liz felt something inside her boiling over, a mix of fury and desperation. "We can't just leave her." David stepped closer, panic casting shadows on his usually calm facade. "This isn't just a place, it's a trap. The stories, they're more than just tales." "What stories?" Liz shouted, fury mixing with fear, her breath coming in jagged gasps. "You need to tell me, David, now." The shadows twisted, thrumming with dark energy as if in response to her challenge. His face paled further, and she could see his resolve wavering. "People go missing here. Some wander in but never come back. No one knows what takes them." The world around her shifted, the ground crackling underfoot like ice ready to shatter. Her instincts screamed. A sense of urgency swelled. Memories of Emma flooded back her laughter, her bright smile a light now dimmed. "Emma!" Liz screamed, willfully ignoring the throbbing dread. She could feel it in her bones now, a gnawing fear blending with a yearning. A glimmer of hope pierced through the despair. She had to push through this darkness. Suddenly, a sharp gasp caught her attention. There, at the edge of the fog, another figure struggled against the shadows. Liz squinted. It was Emma. Her daughter fought against the chains, but they tightened, coiling with sinister glee. "Mom, help me." Emma's voice sliced through Liz like a blade, a plea soaked in terror. The shadows were relentless, pulling her limb by limb. "No." Liz surged forward, fueled by raw adrenaline. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if sensing her defiance. But the ground shook violently, sending her sprawling back. It was a warning, an angry growl from the very earth. "Stay back," David yelled, panic bleeding into his tone. "It's too dangerous." As Liz struggled to her feet, she felt cold fingers wrap around her ankle like chains binding her to this cursed ground. "Emma." The voice was deafening now, whispering, laughing with a chilling echo. "Come join us, Liz. Come join us." With a shuddering breath, Liz clawed at the wet earth, desperate to free herself. The shadows danced, mocking her futile struggle, swirling in a frenzied vortex. The cemetery was alive, pulsing with a hunger she could taste. What if she couldn't save Emma? What if she was lured in too? Yet within the chaos, a flicker of clarity emerged, a fleeting vision of a hidden truth buried beneath bones and tombstones. As the shadows closed in, Liz felt the weight of her choices pressing down, and she knew. She had to decide, fight or flee. Then, without warning, the ground opened beneath her with a deafening roar, dragging her toward the abyss. "Mom!" Emma's scream shattered the darkness around them as loss threatened to swallow Liz whole. Would she brave the depths to save her daughter, or would she be consumed by the graveyard's insatiable thirst? In the sudden stillness, a chilling thought crept in. What ancient powers lay here, waiting for their next sacrifice? What was hidden beneath the surface, deep in the shadows? Nothing was as it seemed, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown to something unspeakable. The graveyard's grip tightened, and Liz felt the chilling essence of despair creeping into her soul as she dangled over an unseen void. Could she conquer the dark secrets of this cursed place, or was she already too late? The earth dropped away like a shattered dream, and Liz felt a jolt of terror cascade through her. She clawed at the ground, but the gaping hole beneath her seemed almost alive, hungry for her surrender. "Emma!" she screamed, desperation lending strength to her voice. The world spun, shadows thickening and twisting around her, obscuring her view of her daughter. The cacophony of whispers crescendoed, pouring out secrets too awful to bear. If she fell, would she find Emma? Or would she simply vanish like so many others before her? With a final burst of strength, she summoned every ounce of willpower to dig her fingers into the muddy earth, anchoring herself against the abyss. It quivered and grumbled beneath her as if protesting against her refusal to succumb. But she couldn't fall. "Not now. Let her go," Liz bellowed into the chaos, her voice piercing through the malevolent laughter that echoed around her. The shadows answered with a low, throaty growl, swirling in a tempest of dark energy. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the fog. It was David, his face pale and twisted in fear, but he was moving towards them. "Liz," he cried, desperation melding into raw terror. "Get back. You're too close. I want to leave her," Liz shouted, bracing against the dark tendrils that threatened to ensnare her. "Emma needs me." In that moment, Liz felt something shift around her. The air changed, crackling with tension. A shriek sliced through the murmurs, reverberating off the gravestones, drowning out everything else. It was Emma's voice, rippling with despair. "Mom! Mom! Help me! Emma!" Liz's heart ached, a physical sensation like a knife piercing straight through. She glanced behind her at David, who was inching closer, eyes wide, a mix of dread and determination painting his features. "Liz, listen," he shouted, panic elevating his tone. "The shadows, they feed on emotion. If you let fear take hold, they'll take you both." Fear clawed at her insides, gnawing at her resolve. But she couldn't succumb now. Not with Emma in peril. "I'm coming for you," she called out, locking her gaze on the figure of her daughter. The chains binding Emma glinted dimly in the ghostly light, tightening even more as Liz drew closer. She could see the terror in her daughter's eyes, a reflection of her own gnawing dread and that heartbeat of clarity. Liz felt a shift. The shadows recoiled slightly, sensing her fierce determination. With renewed vigor, she threw her body forward, pushing against the fear that tried to drag her back. "Hold on. I'm almost there." But as she lunged, the ground beneath her shifted violently again. It surged like a wave, swallowing her whole just as she reached for Emma. She was falling, tumbling into darkness, her screams lost in the void. That familiar voice echoed back, chilling and taunting. "You said you'd join us." Liz, the abyss swallowed her, and for a moment, everything went silent. A moment stretched into eternity. Then, with a sudden jolt, Liz found herself surrounded by chilling silence, her body aching as if waking from a long nightmare. The fog swirled thickly, but she was no longer at the edge. She was somewhere else entirely, the air dense with an ancient weight, the presence of something dreadful lurking just beyond her sight and the distance. She could see tombstones, each casting long shadows. But something was different. The names on them, they were familiar. "Emma," she called again, her voice trembling. A soft sound carried through the graveyard, cooing almost, but deeper. The air chilled, sending shivers down her spine. And Liz realized with dawning horror she wasn't alone. As the shadows began to converge around her, whispering promises of despair and secrets long forgotten, a thought struck her. She was not merely facing the shadows. She was entwined with them, bound by their darkest desires. And with that chilling realization, she understood. To save Emma, Liz might have to unleash the very darkness she feared. What would it take to break the chains that bound them? What unspeakable price would she have to pay to save her daughter? The fog thickened, wrapping around Liz like a shroud. It was suffocating, as if the very air was conspiring against her, whispering threats that clawed at her sanity. The cooing sound grew louder, a warped lullaby that echoed through the air, stirring memories buried deep within her. "Emma!" she screamed again, the name like a lifeline tossed into an ocean of dread. The shadows danced closer, eddying in a grotesque rhythm, pulsing with an energy that set her heart racing. They wanted her fear, her sorrow. They craved her surrender. "Stay away," she shouted, backing away from a particularly dark tendril that curled toward her, sharp edges glistening like teeth. She was not going down without a fight. Not when she could still feel Emma's presence, faint but persistent, tugging at the corners of her mind. Just then, an echo altered the dark melody. A soft giggle broke through, innocent and alien all at once, sending a tremor of cold fear down Liz's spine. The sound echoed from behind one of the gravestones covered in moss, something glimmering just out of her view. "Mommy, you're here," the voice sang through the fog. It was Emma, but twisted, different. "Do you hear her?" David's voice sliced through her terror, raw and pleading. He was still there, close enough that she could sense his heartbeat, but trapped in shadows that seemed to snatch away all light. "Stay focused. Don't look at them." But the shadows complied, shifting like liquid, warping into grotesque forms that shifted and morphed, each one more horrifying than the last. Faces leered at her, some familiar, some far too foreign, hungry for her terror like predatory beasts. "Mommy!" The voice slurred, a playful taunt echoed through the darkness. "Come find me. It'll be fun." "Emma!" The cry ripped from Liz's throat, raw and desperate. "Where are you?" Her feet moved instinctively, drawn toward the grave that seemed to cradle that seductive laughter. It appeared innocuous enough, adorned by flowers wilting beneath unholy grasp. But as she approached, Liz could see more clearly the name inscribed on the stone. It was her own. "No, no." Panic rippled through her as she stumbled back, fear crashing in waves. "This isn't real. It can't be real." But the shadows wrapped tighter. The laughter grew sharper, fading into a cacophony of voices merging into one. Join us. Liz, join us. David lunged forward, reaching for her. We can't let them take you. We need to find Emma. He pulled her with urgency, the connection between them electric. But with every step, the ground quaked beneath them, and tombstones began to tremble as they took on a life of their own. Tear it down. An unseen voice roared, somewhere deep within the fog, resonating with ancient fury. The chains must break. Chains? Liz echoed, confusion swirling through her mind as she looked up at David, his face a mask of determination and fear. What do you mean? Suddenly, the laughter turned into a guttural growl, and the shadows closed in, threatening to consume them both. You know what they want, David shouted. The darkness feeds on your heart, your memories. Give them nothing. Where is Emma? But the shadows had heard her plea. They spiraled around her, tugging at her heart, throwing her memories into the void. Night lights flickering, bedtime stories whispered, laughter at the playground, all tainted with despair. She felt dizzy, ready to collapse as her memories turned against her. The shadows called for her fears, her regrets, and Liz felt a barrier crumbling away inside her. No, I won't let you in, she screamed, a wildness igniting within her heart. She braced against the darkness. The shadows erupted, swirling violently in protest. But the familiarity of Emma's voice drew her closer. Mommy! And in that moment of fractured stillness, a spark ignited deep within Liz, erasing the fear, forging a new path through the encroaching dread. She was ready to fight. But at what cost? It would take more than trust to shatter the chains bonding them. Emma! She roared. I'm coming. Before Liz could move, the ground heaved one last time. Shadows crashed against her with a violent force, sending her sprawling. The world spun, and darkness threatened to swallow her whole once again. The only thought that pierced the engulfing haze. Would she truly have the strength to face what lay ahead? The world righted itself suddenly, but Liz felt disoriented, as though she were still tumbling through voids of shadow. Her pulse thundered in her ears, a wild drumbeat of fear and determination. David! She gasped, searching the fog for him. Where are you? His voice was muffled, rising up through a thick mist that now swallowed the cemetery. I'm here. Just hold on. Slivers of light flickered through the haze if she could just keep her focus on that. But the laughter rose again, surging around her like a storm. Mommy! Mommy! Come play. The repeated taunts struck her from every direction, saturating her with an overwhelming sense of hopelessness. Emma! She screamed, and her own voice felt like a fragile thread stretched to its breaking point. David's hand gripped her shoulder, grounding her momentarily. We can't lose each other in this. His voice was urgent, but shadows writhed around him, hungry for the connection. What do we do? She asked, her heart sinking. They want us to despair, to give up. We need to confront them, he replied, steadying her gaze. Remember who you are. Show them you aren't afraid. But the shadows knew her fears well. They darkened and twisted further, pulling at her thoughts. Images of her past appeared, her mistakes, her failures, missed birthdays, the day she lost Emma. Each memory shattered like glass, embedding themselves into her drenched soul. Join us, Liz. No, I want tea, she shouted. You don't own me. The shadows retreated a fraction, surprised by her defiance, but quickly regained strength. Swirling towards her, each shape a grotesque reminder of what she could lose. A small gasp broke through the cacophony, faint but unmistakable. Mommy, help me. It was Emma, deep in the grasp of darkness. The words whispered through the air, laced with despair. Emma! Liz flung herself forward, but the shadows shot out, wrapping like fingers of ice around her. You cannot rescue what is lost, they hissed, a multitude of voices merging into one sinister laughter. Shut up! Liz clenched her jaw, fighting against the coldness creeping into her bones. In that moment, something ignited in her chest. The love for Emma fueled her, burning against the chill that threatened to engulf her. Hold my hand, she cried out, reaching for David. Their fingers intertwined. It felt electric. Together, they watched as shadows recoiled momentarily, losing some of their strength. Now focus on Emma. Call her name, David urged, his voice a tether in the dark. Emma, come to me, Liz roared, summoning every ounce of love, every memory of joy. Every laugh echoed across playgrounds and nursery nights. The shadows shuddered, twisting in a frenzy. The laughter became frantic, an unsettling mix of excitement and rage. Join us, Liz. Suddenly, the earth shook, and the gravestones trembled as if the dead beneath them responded. With a blinding flare of will, Liz shouted, "You can't take her. She is mine." The ground erupted, cracking apart, sending tendrils of darkness spiraling away. In the chaos, a figure appeared, a small silhouette amid the swirling shadows. Liz squinted through the turmoil, her heart lunging into her throat. Emma! The silhouette stumbled, the veil of fog thinning just enough for her to glimpse the wide eyes staring back, filled with terror and longing. And in that moment of clarity, Liz realized the truth. To save Emma, she needed to tear apart the very chains binding her. Chains made of her own regrets. But as the shadows lunged once more, she screamed, "What will it cost to win her back?" The shadows coiled like serpents, ready to strike. And in those fleeting seconds, Liz felt the weight of a decision crash against her. Would she step into the dark to save her daughter? Or would the darkness consume them both? Just then, a thunderous clap echoed from the graves, the air thick with promise of awakening secrets. The ground trembled again, a deep, guttural growl emerging from the cracks. Liz stumbled, still gripping David's hand. They had to focus. Emma was still out there, her small figure flickering like a candle in a storm. Is this how it ends? She thought, fighting against the despair creeping back in. The thought sliced through her like glass. It was absurd. She wouldn't let it end like this, a mother's worst nightmare. Her child lost in darkness. Liz, David's voice pierced through her swirling thoughts. We can't let them separate us. But the shadows were closing in again. Darkness snaked around, whispering lies in ghostly tones. You're weak. You'll never find her. The laughter rang like a death knell, wrapping around her heart. No, she shouted, each word a defiance. I refuse to give in. Suddenly, the mist shifted. A figure loomed larger in the chaos, a shape emerging from the shadows, taller than any grave marker. The shadows contorted, revealing a monstrous entity that seemed composed of every fear Liz had ever harbored. Its eyes, bright and red as glowing coals, stared directly at her, sucking the warmth from the air. Leave her, David yelled, pulling Liz closer as the creature advanced. Leave us, Liz echoed, her heart racing. What was this thing? Was it a part of her, a manifestation of everything she wished she could erase? It lunged, teeth bared wide in a grin that warped through darkness. The mist swirled violently around them, dimming the light as the figure loomed ever larger. Liz felt its breath, cold and rotten, washing over her. Panic bubbled, but still the love for Emma surged. Emma, she cried, the name ringing out above all. If you can hear me, find the light. Follow my voice. She tightened her grip on David, feeling his strength pouring into her. It was enough. They couldn't back down now, not when they were so close. The walls of the mist thinned to a translucent chain, like fog rolling back to reveal a storm. Suddenly, the laughter went silent. For just a heartbeat, the world paused. It was a moment of clarity amid chaos. She felt Emma's presence, just beyond the edge. A ripple of warmth broke through the cold, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. Mommy! The call was faint but filled with desperation. Liz's heart clenched. That outcry brought clarity to her mind, illuminating her path. What do you want? She bellowed into the dark, staring down the creature whose existence hinged on her fears. The shadows hissed, forming into a human silhouette like a broken mirror reflecting everything she feared. You know what you must do, Liz. Sacrifice for what you seek. And if I refuse? She shot back, her voice strong but filled with uncertainty. What then? Then she is lost to you forever, the creature whispered. You can either embrace the darkness, or let it consume part of you. A surge of anger mixed with fear twisted in her gut. The stakes were high, and the choice loomed over her like a guillotine. The shadowy form lunged forward, hunger glimmering in its jagged grin. "No!" Liz yelled, and with a fierce determination, she squeezed David's hand tighter. "We will not lose her." In that instant, the earth cracked wide open at their feet, forming a chasm that spread with dark tendrils. Liz felt the power coursing through her veins, a pulse that merged with the chaos. She realized then sometimes what one must sacrifice isn't easily defined. The shadows shifted, pressing in like a suffocating blanket. "Can you bear it?" the creature taunted. But Liz would not answer. Instead, she took a stand. Knife-edge clarity washed over her. "If love requires sacrifice, I'm ready." But even as the words slipped from her lips, a rush of ice-cold dread gripped her heart. "What do you want from me?" The darkness responded in a cacophony of wails, swirling. The laughter rose again, deafening and chaotic. The ground rumbled one last time, and then Liz felt a pull, a sharp tug at her heart. She gasped as the shadows surged, taking shape, growing menacingly. All around her, the warmth began to drain, threatening to plunge her back into bleak despair. "Stand firm," she shouted, feeling the edges of her resolve thinning. In a moment of frozen silence, Liz shut her eyes and felt a rush of wind. The vibrant memory of Emma, her laughter, her bright smile flooded her mind. But the darkness pressed harder, whispering, "You will lose more than you know." And in that moment, Liz's heart raced. The weight of her decision felt heavier than any darkness could handle. What would she lose to find her daughter? The tumult intensified, reality unspooling, and the shadows seemed to leer at her, waiting for her answer. The shadows writhed as Liz stood on the precipice, a battlefield between her deepest fears and the flickering hope for her daughter. The creature's laughter transformed into a discordant symphony, driving nails into her conscience. "What will you give up, Liz? Your fears or your love?" Her heart raced wildly. Every single heartbeat echoed like a war drum. David's grip tightened around her hand, grounding her in the chaos. "Don't listen. We can hold them off, Liz. Together." But the entity, a smirk carved into its grotesque features, hissed at them. "Love is nothing against the void. It only makes your sacrifice sweeter." In that moment, her decision loomed closer. The pit opened wider, darkness spilling over the edge like a bad omen. Panic clawed at Liz's gut, but she forced herself to breathe. Emma's faint voice echoed again, pulling her out of despair. "Mommy!" She felt that love ignite anew, a fire tinged with desperation and fierce determination. The pull from the abyss morphed into a shimmering beam, piercing through the shadows wrapping around her. "All right," she whispered, heart trembling. "If it means saving Emma, then I'll pay the price." The creature grinned wider, its teeth sharp and glistening. "Delightful. But remember, true sacrifice has a cost." Before Liz could question further, the ground beneath her cracked deeper, and she lurched as if the earth itself were pulling her down. Flashing before her eyes were memories of every time she failed Emma, a slipped grasp at an amusement park, a distracted moment during soccer practice, each hovering like ghosts, ready to keep her company in this darkness. It clawed at her, taunting her. A sudden tug on David's hand made her look. He was being drawn towards the creature, helpless against the invisible force teetering between loyalty and fear. "Liz, don't!" His voice cut through her haze. "David!" she cried, but the shadows began to swirl around him, ensnaring his feet like roots of an ancient tree clinging to the soil. The chaos intensified, each scream and whisper colliding like thunder in her mind. "Give me your fears." The creature spat, its grotesque eyes piercing straight through her. It wasn't just David it wanted. It was her own vulnerability. Every secret she held close, every regret gnawed at her, begging to be released. "I will not turn against him," she yelled, a newfound strength enveloping her like armor. "Not even for you." With a feral roar, Liz lunged forward, breaking through the chains of darkness holding her back. The ghostly figure faltered, momentarily surprised by her resolve. "Mommy! Help!" Like an echo in a canyon, Emma's voice sliced through the tempest of despair. Liz seized the moment, summoning every ounce of love she had, turning it into a weapon against the darkness. "Stay with me," she yelled, feeling the warmth of her memories flame to life. It was the first day of school, the night they camped under the stars, the day Emma learned to ride a bike. Each memory fueled her, forming a protective barrier against the shadows. But the creature roared back, its voice like thunder, drowning out the light. "You will lose everything unless you submit to the darkness." As Liz pushed through the chaos, she felt the tether to David loosening, the shadows writhing furiously as they strained to reclaim him. "Don't fight it," David shouted, desperation clawing at his voice. "Just let them take you. It's safer." "No," Liz screamed back, her heart aching. "I won't abandon you." The shadows surged forward, furious at her defiance, the laughter morphing into howls of fury that filled the air. "Nothing is lost until you accept it," the creature hissed, frustration evident as it reeled. And then, with a spark of clarity, Liz remembered. It wasn't just about her choice, this was about the bond they shared. It transcended fear, pain, and darkness. Yet, as the shadows raged around her, swallowing hope in darkness, she wondered, was it strong enough to hold back the consuming void? Would she be forced to sacrifice everything she loved to save even one? Shaking, Liz closed her eyes, gripping David's hand tighter, bracing for the inevitable. She was nearing the edge, where the line between love and loss blurred into an abyss. What awaited them on the other side of the darkness? Would their love conquer it, or would they succumb to the hunger of despair? As the cacophony of chaos thundered on, one desperate thought anchored her there. Sometimes, the true test of love is not in holding on, but in letting go. And as the shadows coiled tighter, Liz felt the ground beneath her tremble ominously once more, the answer just out of reach. Everything fell silent, and no whispers. No shadows, no laughter. Just stillness. Liz opened her eyes slowly, disoriented, breath hitching in her throat. She stood before a vast expanse, a luminescent clearing illuminated by a strange, ghostly light. The darkness receded, but not entirely. Shadows lingered like a hushed promise, just out of reach. "Emma?" Her voice echoed, wavering through the air. Panic surged, but a flicker of hope ignited in her heart. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the haze, beautiful and haunting. It was Emma, her daughter, standing just beyond a fragile barrier. Her wide eyes glimmered like diamonds, filled with unshed tears that glossed over the warmth. "Mom!" Emma's voice was tinged with both joy and terror. But then, the shadows coiled around her ankles, like serpents weaving secrets. Liz felt a tingling connection, the shadows whispering promises that hung enticingly between them. "No!" Liz thrust out her hand, the call echoing with fierce determination. "Don't give in, Emma. I'm here. Help me." Emma cried, but the tendrils tightened, dragging her back, feeding off her terror. The fight within Liz surged anew. She wasn't losing her daughter to this darkness. "Not now. Emma, hold on to my voice." Liz's desperation weighed heavy, but clarity blossomed amidst the storm. "Remember who we are. We've fought against worse." The space around her shivered, pulsating like a heartbeat, resonating with energy. Liz felt the love she had for Emma spill outwards, gathering momentum, forming a shield against the encroaching shadows. "I choose love," she shouted, every syllable echoing like thunder. "I will not let fear chase you away." The wall between them flickered, like a candle flame caught in a windstorm, revealing glimpses of the life they shared: family game nights, baking cookies, cuddling on cold winter nights. Each memory was a tether, tying them together, breaking the bonds that sought to ensnare Emma. As Liz reached deeper within herself, the memory of a tender moment surged to the surface, raw emotion flooding her. The echoes of Emma's laughter wrapped around her heart, forging stronger ties. "You are my light. You are stronger than this." The shadows recoiled, screaming through the air in torment. Liz stood firm on the cusp of the void, gripping David's hand, grounding herself. The shadow creature shrieked, flickering between anger and fear. It drew back, its form shattering under the weight of her resolve. A sacrifice for love, it cried, the tone bitter, jealous of the connection they shared. Your heart for her fear. No, Liz yelled, her resolve no longer shaken. You can't have us. You don't own my heart. I will give nothing to the darkness. With one desperate surge, Liz lunged forward, a wild storm of raw love crashing against the shadows. Emma's silhouette flickered brighter, and as their eyes locked, the void surged forward. And in that heartbeat, Liz understood that it was time to sacrifice the burden of doubt, not love. Emma, Liz's voice broke through the void, unyielding and fierce. Your fears hold no power over you. It was a risk that knew no bounds. She felt an echo of warmth wash over her, a guiding light, pulsing with energy. For an instant, as darkness eddied and pulled, Liz saw Emma latch onto the memory of her mother's embrace with radiant clarity. The shadows trembled, gnashing their teeth, shrieking in fury. No, you can't take her from me. But with a fierce exhalation, Liz broke through the final barrier. The void roared, fracturing, fraying at the edges as light exploded around them. Liz's love collided with darkness, a wave crashing against untamed shores. In that moment, the light conquered. The rays of warmth engulfed them, and with one last cry, Liz extended her hand. Emma was free, the chains shattering into thousands of glimmering shards. Their connection pulsed brighter with every heartbeat, reclaiming each lost moment. Tears streamed down Emma's face, but her eyes sparkled with hope and triumph. Mom, you did it. As Liz enveloped Emma in her arms, they were lifted together, clinging to the bright fragmented essence of each other. Echoes of laughter rang through the air, filling the silence with the unspeakable bond of love woven from despair. But through it all, the shadows swirled in the distance, hissing and murmuring their eternal hunger. We have not forgotten, Liz. Let them come. She breathed, holding Emma tight. We're together now. In that moment, they stepped back into existence, the weight of Eldridge Hollow behind them. The sun broke through heavy clouds, illuminating the cemetery, where stones once adorned with sorrow turned to gleaming reminders of hope. The townsfolk were bewildered, eyes wide with awe as Liz and Emma emerged hand in hand, defiance radiating from their hearts. The darkness had been vanquished, but the battle against the shadows within would continue one day at a time. Mom, Emma said softly, glancing back at the echoing whispers. Will they come back? Maybe, Liz replied, squeezing her daughter's hand. But we'll face them together. That's what matters. They turned away from the cemetery, hearts heavy but filled with light. The town rose around them like a protective embrace, and with every step forward, they left the whispers lingering behind, an enduring chorus echoing the strength found in love and resilience. Here's where you come in. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that will have your heart racing. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, because it makes a huge difference for us. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this grand ending. Let us discuss. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They'll thank you for it. Trust me. Show your support, because only true fans know how important it is to keep this community alive.